Hey AfterBuzzers, it's the AfterBuzz TV after show for Billions, Season 1, Episode 12, the Season 1 finale called The Conversation. Join us as we break down the episode, give you our thoughts and our predictions for Season 2. Let's go!
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin!
Yes! Welcome on in, everybody, to the AfterBuzz TV after show for Billions. It's the end of the first season, but what an awesome episode. This was so much fun to watch. But we got the full crew here, the full panel, so let's get started. I am your lead host, Frank Maiorana. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Let's Go Frank M. He stole my introduction for Alina, so I'm not going to give him one. It's JB Zimmerman.
I did do that, so guilty. You guys can follow me at Hey John Blake.
And she's tried a new shampoo and conditioner today. It's Andrea Fasano.
Actually, he got it wrong. That was Alina, but it's all good. Yeah. That's cool. You guys, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Andy Fasano.
And she recommends that the hues of light mauve and dusty rose that have been buried in your makeup drawer should come out now. It's Alina Vision.
Absolutely. It is springtime, ladies. Hey, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Alina Vision.
We've got the full crew here. Thank you so much for tuning in and being with us all season long. We checked the numbers. There's over 28,000 of you listening every week, which is so nice. It's so nice to hear that everybody out there is listening. Use that hashtag ABTV Billions out there. Even going into season 2. We'll come back next season with the social media shout-outs, which is how we start each and every week out there, using social media and commenting on our YouTube page directly. Alina, let's start with you. What'd you see on Twitter? I know Denise is out there, of course, live tweeting each episode.
We love her. She is at NVGhost005. So she actually was kind of live tweeting last week's episode, and she just was really upset with Chuck. Chuck spying. She couldn't believe it. She also said she could never do Wendy's job. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Cool. Well, Denise, thanks for being with us all season long.
Denise.
You are on a first-name basis with us now.
We think we know you.
We think we know you.
We talk about you like you're here.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I wonder what Denise thought this week. JB, did you check out the YouTube page?
Yes, we got some great stuff on YouTube. Obviously, last week we did, there's a lot of therapy going on. There were deep thoughts about people being sociopaths. Lori Haskell says that she was really intrigued by Chuck's character, even though he wasn't really on the psych bench as much as Axe was. You know, it really showed a lot from his, childhood and adolescence, kind of what his character does. You know, seeing him and his father interact, how he had to apologize sort of forcibly and take a more submissive role was really telling, and sort of how, even he interacts with Axe. It's sort of all reminiscent about who he is as a character. It's very interesting stuff. And he says the Axe isn't Lori says the Axe isn't a sociopath, but he does have some narcissistic features, which I think we can all agree with. And so people were just kind of going back and forth about whether they thought, they felt bad for Chuck, kind of taking that very submissive role with his dad, a tough childhood, obviously, that he grew up in, but he also came from a lot of privilege, so can you really, it's a double-edged sword, like who's to blame?
It's a balance.
And the privilege came up a lot in this episode. It was a common theme, in Axe's pitch to Brian, in the Axe and Rhodes finale scene, the Axe v. Rhodes 2, as I am calling it. But yeah, and there was an interesting article that came out on thedecider.com. Brian Koppelman and David Levine were interviewed, and they talked about the sociopath. The question was, in the last episode, you had a discussion about the definition of a sociopath, and I was curious why you called that out. The show is certainly somewhat about whether either or both of these guys is a sociopath, and David Levine said, I think you answered it. We think it's interesting terrain, and the question of whether they are or not is a great question. We thought having them wrestle with that would be interesting. They're too smart not to understand the playing field that they're on.
Nice.
I thought that was a really interesting answer.
Yeah.
And, when someone doesn't have an emotional reaction, we covered this a lot last week, you tend to start thinking a certain way. But unfortunately, the notes from that session were revealed and made public tonight. So let's go around the table now. Your top thought from tonight's episode. What stuck out to you the most? What do you like the most, JB?
I mean, the title, it's hard to pick the conversation for what that means because there were several. And it was just a constant standoff with all the characters. So I really liked that, how there was, a lot of similarities with each standoff. It's kind of a tie right now between the one with Axe and Chuck because that was so epic and it kind of led up the entire season to that. But I really liked the Wendy Chuck standoff because that it went a different way than I was expecting. She had all the power at the beginning, sort of being betrayed. But Chuck, made some really good points that I did not see coming. Like, is it really breaking into somewhere if you have the password? Like, that... It's definitely a great area, and obviously that's privileged notes, so it wouldn't be like part of a court case that you could admiss. But I don't know, it was a really interesting dynamic when you get into a marriage, and there's sort of a lack of barriers there. Like there is kind of an openness that you accept when you go into a marriage contract, which is why you can't force someone's husband or wife to testify against you. So that was a really interesting dynamic where it was kind of forcing people to pick sides, their marriage or her work.
Right. It was a big conversation.
Right. Yeah. I'm going to agree with JB. I think the Wendy and Chuck conversation was the biggest for me.
Great.
Because that was kind of the culmination of what we as viewers wanted to see. We just knew as the show, obviously, that him and Bobby Axelrod's conversation was bound to happen, or there was something, obviously, that would have happened in this episode with them. But the Wendy and Chuck conversation is like, it could have gone like which way. We made predictions about it, and I thought Alina freaking called it that she was recording that conversation, and it was such a good call because as soon as she turned the phone over, you're like, why did they show that?
It's like, ooh, she's recording.
And while I'm on this, they, meaning the writers, I really liked from the article that you read that I think the writers of the show are not only so smart, we keep saying it, it's episode 12, like over and over, you guys are amazing. We love them, but they also it's like they like to be very smart and not trick the audience. They actually enjoy when people in the audience, whether it's our show or people like that reporter, whoever, that journalist who did that article, kind of understand. I think they like that when you kind of see where they're going with it, which I respect a lot because I think that's giving the audience a level of respect, and that's why the show is so good.
Alina.
Right. I have to agree with Andrea. I mean, I was waiting and dying to hear the Chuck-Wendy fight. Because, I mean, everyone knew it was coming, and then when the scene opened and she's just sitting there at the table, you knew what was going to go down. And I think she played it so smart. I mean... recording him, obviously, because she had to clear her name with Bobby.
Sure.
And that's the only way you can do it. No matter how many times in that office she would have said, I didn't do it, it wasn't me. He wouldn't have believed her. So she was really smart, obviously, as we've seen so many times over and over again. But at the same time, Chuck was really smart because he brought up some facts that I don't think I really thought too much about. No. I kind of dismissed. And when you really start to think about it, it's like he does have a point. And you saw like the wheels in her head really turning and saying, wow, he actually does have a point. And that's probably why I've been looking for other jobs elsewhere.
That's true, and he spoke to some insecurities I'm sure that she was feeling about her job all along and that he pointed out to her. I do want to cite the writer of the piece, since I quoted it. It was by Scott Porch, who had the Q&A with the showrunners for Billions. So Scott, great reporting out there for you. But I will be a little bit of a contrarian. Alina, you kind of talked about it, but I love the Wendy versus Axe aspect of this show because... for a long time, theirs has been even the strongest bond of two characters on this show. And I knew it as soon as he pulled out the pictures of them being together at bath time, as one of our listeners said last week. One of our listeners predicted that last week.
Yeah, no, I remember seeing that comment a few weeks ago.
You cited it, JB. So it was, that to me was... I knew it was over after that. And so for Axe to be surprised was a little bit shocking. Like, you can't pull all that stuff out and just have her come back and go on as normal.
Exactly, because the trust is broken completely. And she's one that's so all about trust in all of her relationships. And the two relationships that meant the most to her both betrayed her.
Yeah.
So I feel bad
So
for her.
sad.
Yeah.
But she really is the glue of this show, and what makes this so unique. If you're a fan of Sopranos or had ever seen it before, she's Carmela Soprano and Dr. Melfi at the same time.
Right.
She's the psychiatrist and the wife.
Nice
and
call.
Yeah.
So they've like melded these characters together into such an interesting person. JB, do you think she's sort of like the glue?
Yeah, I mean, she also made out like abandoned at the end of this episode. She got $5 million, and she probably is moving on to a new job.
Yeah.
And a Maserati.
Yes, free car, probably not a $250,000 valuation, but we can, we can move on from that.
JB had a problem.
Details.
It's very nice. I would take it.
right,
Please send one over. I really like that. I mean, I assumed that Axe would sort of have like a last kind of a Hail Mary situation in that like wall safe, which is cool. We all sort of expected that, but you know, it wouldn't. After kind of going there, it's sort of unrecoverable to get back to a place where you can just push that under the rug.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised that she went the way she did. And left. I mean, there's so much that had gone on, like so much accusation, so much tension back and forth. Like her marriage was almost torn apart. So I think that she did what was best and just had to walk away. And I think the one thing, going back to the Chuck Wendy confrontation, that really struck a chord with her was that she's defending criminals. And I think that that kind of
Part of that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Hold on, what do you mean part of that?
That she's part of an organization that does criminal activity. She's not defending them as far as like, that's not.
Right, but I mean, that's what I'm
she's
saying. It's like she's not just a part of the organization, she's encouraging them to keep doing it. Like, I mean, obviously she's not saying like, hey, keep doing that
Right.
illegal stuff.
Right.
But, by getting them to be their best selves, she's, and she's a very smart person. She knows that that's going on. She knows that she's setting them up to do this stuff. And it's like, if you are, making Nazi uniforms, like, even though you're not, like, doing anything bad, like, you're just making clothes, but at the end of the day, you're
helping.
part of the
Right.
cause. Like,
I think it's interesting that she didn't answer that question to Rhodes, because when it was asked to me, I thought it was just like a brush off, like a jab from him. But obviously it really affected her. And so when she went to Bobby and said, how am I supposed to answer that? I was like, kudos. That is like, just again, taking that to the next level of something that I didn't even realize. Like, it does matter. It's exactly what you're saying. Also, did anyone else realize that when he told Lara that she was gone, he didn't say that she quit?
No.
He didn't-
And he
you know what
also
I mean?
said she's gone for now.
Right.
So he expects she's going to come back.
I thought that was
Possibly.
a very
Yeah.
eggshell conversation with his wife. So I just caught on to that. I was like, you didn't say that she quit. And you didn't
said
say
she's
you
gone.
fired her. So
Well, he said she's gone.
okay, take it easy, A-team. Ladies.
One at a time. Okay, Alina, go ahead, and then JB's gonna rebut you.
Yes, exactly.
she knows what I'm
I
saying.
agree with her. I mean, there was definitely there was tension between him and Lara when they were talking about Wendy. There's some tension there. Lara obviously does not like her. I think for more reasons than she even kind of lets on.
Agreed.
She's intimidated by their relationship. And I think he knows that, and so he didn't really say why. But at the end, he also said, well, she's gone for now,
Yep.
if you caught that. So I think he thinks she could be back. Maybe she's just like everyone else who is just in their blood and they really can't get away from it. It could be. Make things interesting, but you never know.
JB, your rebuttal, and then I'm gonna go.
Well, I can't see like how you could blame Axe for that at all. I mean, yes, he didn't say that he fired her, but that wasn't really.
Such
No,
a
you don't
guy.
understand. We're not blaming him. We're pointing out something that is totally.
Okay. You could point out anything. You could point out the fact that Laura was only saying that because she's jealous of their relationship. boom.
No. This is like a different level of it's just
Okay, so are you saying that Laura's animosity toward Wendy has nothing to do with the fact that Wendy is a woman and spends a lot of time with her husband, one-on-one? Are you saying that?
No.
Well,
We're
then-
saying that Bobby Axelrod is aware of Lara's sensitivity to the Wendy situation. That's
right.
Thus, he omitted
Right, but
how she left the firm, because if he said she left me,
Right.
that's a win for his wife.
Right.
And then, because if she ever came back, then she knows that Bobby.
I don't think that has anything
Everybody
to
out
do
there-
with Laura at all. Like, he doesn't need to emasculate himself to his wife. Like,
If
Okay,
that's
let
so
me.
No, I know. It's so funny how we see
I'm
it
blowing the
differently.
whistle.
Yeah.
I'm blowing the
What?
whistle.
Okay.
I gotta be
Ridiculous.
referee. I'm going to be referee here. I think you both have points.
Right.
I think what you guys are arguing is that he told a half truth.
Yes.
So he told that she left, but didn't disclose the full extent to which the description of the events went down. But I think what JB is saying, and I agree with both of you, is that, you know, Axe was ready to have the discussion. This is one point that wasn't brought up in this previous discussion here, is that he wanted to talk about her. He said, Wendy's really valuable, and
Right.
Lara shut it down and said, I really don't want to talk about this right now. So there is a spirit of cooperation between the two that I don't think it's so damaging that he didn't tell her that she quit, that it would cause some sort of rift down the line. Okay?
No.
I'm just saying that it's something worth bringing up, because I
Right.
don't think that it's something that was just passed over simply. I think there was
Right,
a
it's not.
purpose. It was purposely omitted, is what I'm trying to say, which just leaves a little interpretation for the relationship.
yeah, I mean,
Insane.
I guess. I don't see, like, how it really means anything other than the fact that he just, like, didn't want to.
Little half truth.
That's okay. We'll
Well,
see.
no, like,
if
it's
you guys
bad
have an
news.
opinion
Like,
about it,
you
let
don't
us
have to,
know.
like, celebrate every mistake that you make. I mean, do you?
It's not a mistake.
Well, yeah. I mean, okay.
We could really move on. I think anybody who understands that
you brought
gets
it up. So the fact that you're like
For sure,
trying to
but
jump
you
jump
don't
ship right
get
now.
it. No.
I
Because there's
heard
nothing
you.
else
What-
to say about it.
What is?
Okay,
what
blowing the
don't I get?
whistle. Time out. On to the next topic. We're going to move on because we've talked this to death.
Yeah.
And you guys can weigh in out there. Use that social media, hashtag ABTV Billions, and we'll come back next year and we'll fight about it again. Okay? So let's move on to another interesting scene that I really liked this episode, which was Bobby and Brian. So Ornbach is there at the pizza joint, and they're having a small discussion, and then Orange gets up, and then Bobby essentially comes on and pitches being part of the team, and Brian didn't say no.
Right.
Do you think that's a yes for next season, Alina?
I mean, it could be. Everyone has a price. And we know that he does need the money. You know, it's something it's a carrot, you know? And everyone has a price. I mean, 7 figures, you don't have to deal with Chuck. You can kind of, you know, be on your own little pedestal and not have to answer to somebody above who's just kind of going on crazy goose chases, I guess they could say. It's tempting. I really want Brian to say no, but I have a feeling it's not going to go that way.
7 figures is hard to pass.
Yeah, it
Andrea,
really
you think the same
is.
thing?
Especially for someone it's been labeled who has a money problem. I think definitely, I'm not saying he'd definitely say yes. I think he's tired of feeling like Chuck and his do-gooder side is playing the same game as Bobby Axelrod and not winning. So I think he's going to feel like, hey, I'm defending myself against this negative and kind of bad action anyway, so what's the difference?
Yeah.
Kind of deal.
JB, what do you think of Brian's future?
I agree, but for different reasons. I don't think it's about only money, and I don't think it's about just Chuck. I think for Brian, he's realized that the corporate culture, I guess, that would be working with Axe or on that side is much better suited for him. I mean, he really appealed to how they both came from nothing and really worked from the ground up, and that similarity between them allows them to know like how far each other would go, knowing where they come from. Having said that, I think that there are a lot of good benefits for working for Axe, but it's also escaping the negatives. Working for Chuck, like he was the head of his team, but really couldn't even call his own shots. And he ended up doing almost more illegal things being there. Like where he started, which was like, you know, a guy by the book, like to do everything to put people like acts or criminals, I guess, behind bars, and he ended up going down a path that would have made him even worse.
Yeah.
You know, there was a conversation between Chuck and him where he like made him sit in the chair and like feel that power just so he would legitimize all the bad that he was doing for the greater good. And I think that really messes with your morale. And what Axe said, like, is something that really stuck out to me, was it's a different type of integrity, but it is your own. Like, you can like kind of make your moral code and be able to stick to it and not have kind of a flippy-floppy situation.
Yeah, I think that's appealing to Brian, because there's been accusations by Terry first, and now Kate, while she was sitting in the office when Rhodes terminated the case, she looked at Brian and said, Brian, as if to say, why aren't you standing up to this? We clearly have something here, and the boss is killing it, and you're not doing anything about it. So I agree with you. I think there's a pressure building up on Brian, and it's been an interesting plot line. Something that I thought was unexpected coming into the season was about Brian being his own man and carving his own way instead of being Chuck's number two. So I think it's there. I think the possibility is there. It may take another season of recruitment by Oren and Bobby, but the idea that he could make millions of dollars, not have to go to his girlfriend and get his apartment guarantee, provide for his mom, which was a new fact we didn't know about before. His mom's still working, obviously in her older age, and he would be able to take care of her. I think there's some strong pulls there. And that sort of back and forth was one of my favorite scenes in this show, and it took place in the pizza parlor too, which I don't think was a mistake.
No.
And I think it's just I think it'd be such a good plot twist, like to see somebody from Rhodes' team
Yeah.
now
for sure.
on Axe's team.
Something
like,
unpredictable.
That's the ultimate, like, you know, in your face.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the final scene of this episode, which was Rhodes essentially walking in. Axe Capital has been torn to the ground physically. And it has to give him some level of satisfaction. I did this. I planted false information for the janitor to pass along. He did so, and they ripped it down to the studs. I mean, he is walking through like a conquering hero, right? I mean, did you guys feel the same way? Like, he made this happen. He gutted this place, and he's here to let that, you know, the emperor that he has defeated know about it.
Right.
What did you think about that scene?
I loved it. I mean, I think it was just the crescendo to the whole season.
Yeah.
Just the fact that he was able to pretty much bring Axe to his knees. I mean, his empire was shredded. And just to walk in and hand him the check and say, it didn't have to be like this, pretty much.
But I have one, and you just said that, so I'm sorry to interrupt, but that reminded me, like, it was Chuck who submarined that whole deal. So did that moment feel legit to you? Because, like, Chuck's the one who kept moving the goalposts in that meeting.
Right.
Axe signed the check and was prepared to hand it over. So I don't know that moment had the meaning that they were going for there.
I mean, it kind of did, but I think for me, it was just, those were the two times that we saw kind of, you know, the dog pissing match, were those two scenes. And so it kind of brought it full circle. And once again, Rhodes is pushing the buttons. And it could have been different, but he kept pushing the buttons.
Right.
So, yeah.
How many buttons he pushed tonight?
A ton. But I think that's absolutely. I think it's also not only the pissing match, but that's all Rhodes has. Like, he even told Wendy, like, he has, and greatest line at the end when he's like, you know, the only thing that's better than a man with everything or resources in every way is somebody who has nothing to lose. I even said it before he said it, because it's so true, and he has nothing to lose. So I think the only thing he has is pushing buttons, and is just that kind of like, hey, I'm gonna get you somehow, whether it's just by driving you crazy so that you mess up because you are so sharp, or some way. And by the way, I really don't like you. Like, no matter what, I just don't like you.
Yeah. JB.
I don't know. I mean, it's easy to see Rhodes like walking in like after as a victory, but I really don't think that's the case. For me, it's sort of an even playing field where Axe has kind of destroyed his own world, his office, but Chuck, his world was already taken from him too. Like his world, he said, was
Right.
Wendy.
Yeah.
So without that, I think he's able to say that he's got nothing to lose, but I don't think that that's true. When he was kind of confessing that like the photos of him going into that sex club, if those had gone on like USA Today, then that would be bad. That hasn't happened yet, and that still could. He has a job. Like, he doesn't have nothing to lose. Like, he might put everything on Wendy and his wife, and that's maybe 90% of his life. But he still has his job. He still has his family, like his dad and that family line's reputation.
I know. Frank's
He
eyebrows
does
are
have
going
a
up.
He's got kids. Like, who wants to look like, if that one sex story came out, like, how would his kids feel about it? Like, he would be destroyed in their eyes too. So there's a lot more that he's not thinking about right now. I think he feels broken because his wife left him and he's living in a hotel, like with like people watching TV very loudly in the next room. But I think that he still has further to go down and acts where it's very physical, seeing his entire office dismantled in complete shambles. But he came from nothing, so he can go back there, I think, more easily than Rhodes could. Like the neutral of where they started is so different. Like I think Axe would be more comfortable without any money and figuring out a way to get back to the top than Rhodes would with that, because he's never like his neutral is like a huge
Funny that
trust
they even
fund.
mentioned that with
Right.
Lara,
Right.
when he had that conversation, like, we don't want to go back there,
That's very true.
Right.
But JB brought up a good point, and we talked about this a few weeks ago in predictions. I asked you guys, do you think Chuck and Wendy's relationship is going to last? They're clearly on a break now, separated but not divorced. What do you see for the future of them? Are they going to make it? Like, here's what I kind of think. I think it has the ability for Chuck to try and win Wendy back. But he's got to improve his behavior because he betrayed her a lot this season in many ways. And yeah, you guys are right before when we were talking about their fight. He made some good points. But his actions all season long were totally unacceptable to her. And it's got to the point where she's asked him to move out. Do you see a reconciliation in the future, Alina?
Possibly, and I say that because both of them walked away from what was killing their relationship. So with Rhodes, it was he dropped the case. I mean, he had to anyways because that he couldn't win with that information. But he kind of walked away from that. She walked away from Axe Capital, and I see like they missed each other, I guess you could say, because Chuck brought it up when he was talking to Axe. He obviously misses his wife, and then she brought it up when she was talking to Axe that
It's the father of my kids.
Right,
still.
exactly. It's the father of my kids. So
I like that.
yeah,
There's still some loyalty there. It's
Right.
not
Yeah.
completely damaged beyond repair.
No, and I don't think just like love doesn't go away just like
Right.
that. So I think being very smart, the both of them, they know that, and there's a lot to clearly work on. And I think there's going to be a lot more conversations happening. That's my prediction. Just a lot more conversations going to happen before anything really happens or changes.
Yeah, no, I can get behind that. I think it can be
thank you,
salvaged. No, I agree with both of you. I think it can be salvaged. There's many conversations that we heard. Wendy deleted the incriminating evidence for him. She was like, "Yeah, he's the father of my kids." I agree. I don't think that love can just be erased.
Yeah.
Plus, even in the height of their confrontation, they were still honest with each other. And I think that will allow them to kind of rekindle things if they want to. He admitted what he did with going into the sex club. He stopped it when he was actually there. They've been together for long enough where they've had open communication, and I think that they they can get back there.
I hope so.
Positive. Positive thoughts.
It's going to depend on Chuck, and if
Yeah,
he
for
changes
sure.
and if he's honest with his wife. You know, I saw a funny prediction out there that maybe Chuck becomes a judge next season. We'll get into predictions in a minute, but you know, I think there is a path toward a reconciliation, and count me as one who's rooting for that.
Yeah.
Before we get into our final topic, I want to remind everybody that you can follow us on YouTube. Please subscribe to us there, and also on iTunes. Leave us a review there as well. Again, I was talking before. It's been great to have so many people out there following us throughout the season, and your review on iTunes help us get more exposure so that more people can find our show, because millions of people are watching, and I figure everybody who's watching should listen to our show too. So we appreciate all the fan engagement out there too. So last topic, you know, take the entire season into mind, okay? Think about the episodes and everything that we've known so far. What about this show is going to stick with you until the next season comes on next January? You know, what are you waiting for, or what about this first season gets you excited about season 2?
Wow.
All of it.
Yeah, all
The
of
whole
it.
thing.
Like, seriously, all of it. I love the writing. I love the characters. I love the depth of the characters. I love the way they roll it out and tell the story. I can't wait to see what happens with their relationships and, you know, just the trial, not the trial, but the case. And yeah, I love everything about it. Can't wait.
Okay, let me rephrase
Yeah,
that, because we're getting a little bit into predictions. Who was your favorite character this season? And you can't say Wendy. Okay.
Okay, all right.
I'm exempting Wendy, but who most surprised you?
I know mine.
Go ahead.
Axe.
Oh,
For
good.
sure.
Yeah.
Like, hands down, Axe. Just the whole persona, the depth of him, everything. I mean, I think he really just embodied that character. Damian Lewis really embodied that character and took it to another level, and that was definitely my favorite character.
Andrea?
Well, of course I want to agree, but I want to say another one just because she took that one, and we were the A-team, so we should get two different. Not only what she said, that I can't even picture somebody else playing that role right now, so that's tremendous. Great job, Damian Lewis. Because of this episode, even though he plays a smaller role, and Wags. I hated Wags those first
Yeah,
two
you did.
episodes. I couldn't stand his attitude, and the things he was saying was really, it made my skin crawl. Just, I don't know, like feminist wise and all that stuff. But he's freaking awesome, and he's so funny, and I mean I can hang with that. Like, it's fun. So I liked him, and even the way, like, the reactions he had in this episode were great. So I like Wags. I kind of want to answer your first question too.
Okay, go ahead.
Go for it, girl.
Because you said relationships in this show, but I think it's also the fact that this show has a natural arc, but also it has surprising storylines that aren't necessarily out of left field. Like that, like Axe, even in this episode, asking Brian, it's not something that any of us could have really pinned down and written and predicted, but yet doesn't not make sense.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not like it hit you in the face and it's like, great, you writers are doing whatever the heck you want because you ran out of a storyline. Nope, it's not like that. So
It's like they've left little nuggets.
Totally.
Every other episode, kind of, for that. Not every other episode, but every few episodes.
And you go, wow, that does make sense.
Yeah.
And you connect it so well. And then the little things like the pizza parlor, the wardrobe, things you've brought up in a previous episodes of our
Whoever
after show.
styles Axe, like, bravo.
Oh yeah. Even in this,
Does an
in this
amazing
episode,
job.
he changes from the suit to like the everyday.
To his casual.
And then
wear.
kills
casual
it.
wear.
Yeah.
All right, JB, your turn. Favorite character?
Yeah, I have to go with Axe. I'm definitely team Axe in general.
Right.
But I do really appreciate Damian Lewis's portrayal of him because I don't think anyone would have given him the different dynamics that we saw. Like, he's awesome. He's a straight up badass. Like, we saw that like when he went to his casual clothes and just crushed that meeting and like got things back on track. And he's done that several times.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that he can be so awesome, but there's also like something dark too. There's something sinister about him that also is not necessarily bad, but it's like it's enough where you can't be like, he's a hero and we worship him.
Right.
Because it's muddy. And that's what I kind of going back to your first question. This show, I really want to rewatch the whole season because they make it so like interconnected and messy, and it's awesome to see that at such a high level job thing because there's no right answer, and I think it goes throughout the whole season to the very last scene with Axe and Rhodes where they're both neck and neck, really making good points back to each other. Like they were both breaking the law, they were both doing criminal stuff, and they were both believing that each other's right.
Yeah.
And to see that dynamic even after the whole season where I'm definitely rooting for Team Axe, but I'm like, oh well, like there's so many times you go back and forth where being like the capitalist in me is like, why can't you just keep making as much money as you like are able to?
Sure.
Because there are logistical rules that kind of prevent that, but at the same time, like, we did make those rules, so you can't just like cut in line and be like, well, I'm smart enough to trick you, so I win. So I think that is such an interesting thing to play for a main character, to be both liked 90% of the time, but also like have certain things where it does go the other way and he's not perfect. So to ride those out is really interesting to watch him portray.
Yeah, he's been a great character. I will go off the beaten path a little bit, and I look at this show, and if I wanted to play a character, who would I want to be? And I have to be honest and say I'd love to be Dollar Bill.
Oh, yeah.
Nice. Billy.
Just so funny all season long, and that scene when he comes in victoriously after having got off.
Kaiser.
Kaiser, and he's got his hands in the air. What's up?
Even in this episode, when Axe came back in and he got that deal, he high fives him, and we all went, yeah, Kelly.
And Kelly Aucoin's great. We will have him back on next season because he's going to be back. He better be back.
Yeah.
And we'll have him back on to talk more about the show. But it's just like such a great role. I'm Kaiser Soze, mother effer is like going to be a line that sticks with us until next season. And speaking of that, I want to do one more favorite thing because I kind of like everything you guys said. Some great thoughts. Give me your favorite scene of the season, and you cannot pick what somebody else picks. So, Alina, you're first.
Oh, wow.
Your
Okay,
favorite
putting
scene.
me on the spot.
All right, I'll go first.
Okay.
I loved the...
I know what you're going to say.
I know, you know what, I'm going to go the non-obvious choice.
Oh, okay.
Because I'll let you guys do it as a safety mechanism, just in case I doesn't have it. But I really like the bathtub scene between Wendy and Bobby. It was just a true honesty conversation. I thought it got a little bit soiled with the pictures having been taken of it, which is kind of really weird in a nude place. You've got security camera videos, because those weren't like still shots.
Right.
They were timestamped.
Yeah.
So it seemed like there were security cameras. So that tainted it a little bit for me. But I just thought that was so revealing about Wendy and how she views herself within the company structure, which was a big revelation and something that we hadn't known so far. So I really, really love that scene. And when I think about Billions as a show, that's one of the first scenes that pops into my mind. JB.
Well, yeah, are we calling the
Dollar bill
the fake fight off the table?
Yeah.
Because that clearly, I think that's everybody's favorite scene. That was just phenomenal. Beyond that, there was a time I remember with Axe where he gets called, like they try to take everything away from him, sort of the start of the downfall, and it came in, I think it was a meeting in his office where they didn't want to name the building after him, and he just was like not having it, just like completely 180'd that meeting and like took the power back, and that was such a cool moment to do just in a one-on-one situation, and just like decimate his opponent. I thought that was so cool.
Andrea.
Obviously, everything Axe was in because they're just so brilliant. But I'm gonna go with the first scene of the entire season because it was the most original.
right.
Yeah.
Something I've literally never seen before in a show. And that, if you could recall, was between Wendy and her husband, Chuck Rhodes, and she peed on him. And that was just insane. I'm talking from
about the pee.
every moment of that entire first scene where you don't even know it's Wendy and that it's his wife yet. So that just set this tone for this entire show, that it was going to be different, that it was going to be smart, that it was going to be a little sexy and fun. And that's mine for sure.
Cool.
Oh, okay, that was a good one.
Thank you.
So was yours. Everyone has a good one.
I went really out of the box.
I think my favorite scenes, have been whenever Wendy and Axe are together. So I'm going to have to say the scene where Axe asks her if he's a sociopath last week. Yeah, because I think that was kind of a culmination, because she'd been waiting to do that session for forever, and I'd been waiting for her to do a session with him. I mean, he came in for like little pieces here and there, little pep talks, but like to actually see a session with him, I thought was really cool.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, well, let's move into the final segment of the show for 2016. It's predictions.
Your AfterBuzz TV prediction.
Oh, nice. A new drop for predictions.
Yeah.
Just in time for the final episode. What do you see coming for season 2, Alina?
I actually think I see Brian switching teams.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty, bombshell right there.
Right.
And I think I see actually Wendy coming back somehow.
Back to Axe Capital.
Back to Axe Capital.
Before she's back in her relationship.
Maybe, possibly, because I just don't see her completely leaving. She might leave for a little while, for 5 episodes, and then be bored with her job, and then somehow come back.
Andrea.
To jump on that bandwagon, I think if she does go away, she's going to go to that one where we saw where she made the other girl go. I forget her name and the name of the company, but it was something interesting. Where she just had the interview last week.
Oh, Zenobia.
Yeah, that one. So that'll be interesting, because that was like a power woman running that company, and I'd love to see that play out a little bit in an episode or two.
The offer's still on the table as far as we know.
Yeah.
Right.
So I like that. I'm going to also carry on the Brian thing, because I'm going to do a little subplot and say that it causes major rift with Kate. Because she wants to be POTUS, so she's all,
very ambitious.
pissed if her boyfriend's going to jump ship and be on the other side.
JB?
Yeah, I mean, that'd be a great dynamic. I think that Wendy is not going to come back, though. I think hopefully she's still involved, because she's been such a crux for this entire season. I'd love to see her still interact with Axe, and I think that even if she's not working for Axe Capital anymore, I mean, what's left of it, I guess. There's still going to be a connection there. I think Rhodes is still going to try to get her to step up and kind of admit something. But Wendy knowing that Axe has dirt on her and I guess their marriage is really interesting. I don't think that that's something she's going to tell Rhodes, but I do think that's going to prevent her from kind of blowing a whistle on the whole operation.
Interesting. I will say that I think Rhodes' primary plot line to start next season is going to be trying to win Wendy back, and I think he'll do so successfully. He has to admit that he's wrong, he's been wrong, he's acted inappropriately, and find the chemistry that they had before all these events went down. I mean, she's a beautiful girl, willing to do a lot of weird things for him, and clearly there has been something there for a long, long time. And she even acted in this episode to protect him in a couple ways. So I think the door is open, and he's going to change his behavior and do things by the book. And I think that's what's going to be the difference with next season, is he's going to do things the right way.
I don't think
Andrea's
so.
disagreeing.
I don't think
but
so.
okay. But I will predict that in order to get his wife back, he's going to do things the right way and show that he's acting honorably.
So do you think that he's going to completely, get rid of the case then?
Well,
because that's going to be one of her...
The case is gone already. I mean, he already terminated it, right? You can't reactivate. I guess
but
he could.
said he's going to get Axe, for something.
Right. But I think the way that he'll approach it is a more legalistic and honest way.
Do you think he's going to get rid of the janitor?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. He could keep him and mess with...
The secret's out.
Well, no, Axe knows.
Axe knows now. So, the janitor is no more.
Done.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I think Rhodes would say it was worth it for how he's found Axe.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, the building was in
Shreds.
disarray. Like, it was...
Like apocalypse now.
Yeah.
I wonder if Axe moves. If we get a whole new office.
No, he's
and
got
a new-
many. He can just have people
I know.
come in and fix it.
That's a week's worth of work to get that back. So before we close
Vacations
out,
for everyone.
Yeah.
before we close out, I want to thank everybody here on the panel. You guys gave up time on the Super Bowl Sunday.
I know we had some major events during
Valentine's
the show.
Day.
Valentine's Day,
Yeah.
Easter.
I mean, you guys have been awesome all season, showing up. Great thoughts. Like what I was saying before we went on the air, just the most fun I've ever had doing an after show here. So you guys were great. And you listeners have been great out there. So thank you so much for listening all season long. That's it. That's all for this season.
Woo!
We will be back next year,
Yeah, not
of
next week.
2017. Until then, we have been Alina Vision
You guys can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Alina Vision.
and Andrea Fasano.
Hey guys, you can follow me. I do Quantico after show and a new boxing after show. So if you're done with us on Billions here till next year, follow me there at Twitter and Instagram at Andy Fasano.
JB Zimmerman.
Thank you, Frank. You guys can follow me at Hey John Blake.
And I am Frank Maiorana. You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Let's Go Frank M. JB and I do the Limitless After Show for CBS, so be sure to check that out if you watch that show. We'll see you in 2017.
Oh my God,
I know,
that
that sounds so crazy.
Until then,
just started.
one last time, everybody.
Make it
rain!
La, la, la.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.